You've got the forecasting, you got the underlying finance, you got the models, you got the algebra. So as you fulfill this week's assignment, which is replicating much of this, of course, in different problem sets, homework, etc., next week's all about interpretation. Because that's all that's left, right? How do we interpret this? What is relevant, what is not? What can we call good, what can we call bad? What do we accept, what do we reject? Which I think is what Casey's been gnawing at for about 6 weeks.
He was going to say something. He was going to just say something, though. He always was wise.
I'm good. Yeah, I was going to say something. I won't.
See, now we can't. We got to hear it, Casey. Now we got to know what you wanted to say.
No, it was before, when he first asked the question, I was just going to say, I think that's the point, is that there's these two different answers, and he doesn't want us to know how to evaluate. Like, he doesn't want us to say which one's better because we don't have any context.
Yeah.
And so
and by the way,
that's the point of this lesson. In fact, that's the point of this whole Mira Dravana case up until this point. So you could have this little grand reveal right here at this moment and say, you have two huge different numbers, and I have not given you any way to tell which one's right.
Yeah.
So.
By the way, the last problem set you do is not Mira Dravana, of course. It's something called Leland Manufacturing, and it's using the forward market multiple, and it's the only problem set for which you don't already have the answers. So there is no solution set that I make available to you, because the whole point of it is you've been at it for 6 or 7 weeks at that point. You've got to be able to bring out some of your intuition, some of your ability to manipulate, and some of your guesswork that should have some more foundation now than it did 5 or 6 or 8 weeks ago.
Well, isn't the right answer just whatever money you can get the other person to pay you?
Yeah, Emilio, that's exactly the right answer. So you and I go into negotiation room, and we're going to sit down and have a conversation. You're the seller, I'm the buyer. How do you know what a reasonable amount's going to be and where to start negotiating?
It depends.
Well, yeah. Or you think back, I'm so glad I put up with Haskell's routine for 7 or 8 weeks because he gave me a framework so I could have some knowledge. And the knowledge tells me what I should be reasonably able to get at the bottom on the downside, and what a buyer would reasonably expect to pay on the upside. And so at least I have something to work with. I've got a range that we can play with. Because if not, if you don't come into that with a range, you're subject to me. You're subject to my knowledge and me telling you, no, I'll only pay this. And you don't know if it's reasonable or not. Right. You go into that room wanting to know everything the other people in the room know. I made a career of trying to never go into a room where I didn't know more than everybody else in the room.
Right. It just kind of reminds me of the I think it was the last assignment where the hurdle rate the investor was asking for was 20%, which would have discounted the company deeply, which was unreasonable given the company's WACC. So,
unless you introduce some adjustments where the new owners brought something more, right?
I remember, though, that the number was something like $400 million. There's no, I mean, you got to be, I mean, who's got that kind of know-how that's worth $400 million?
Well, I think the term is nutso, right? Yeah. So that kind of a spread, probably completely unrealistic. A couple of points, maybe not, but a couple of points discount rate difference is a big spread when you have adjustments as well, right? All of this has given you, hopefully, a toolbox where you can make these kinds of assertions and assessments, whether it be for the most complex of assets, which is a big company, or the simplest of assets, which might be buying a new truck for your existing company. What cash flow will that give you that you didn't already have? What cost does it give you didn't already bear? At what rate should you expect? Can you drive a net present value? That's all we're doing. We're just doing it in a relatively complex asset at the moment.
By the way, I've settled on Overstock, which is a really quirky company that's in Midvale.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Be careful when you talk about Overstock to factor in their unreasonable exposure to cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, so that's why I thought it was interesting. They like to experiment with crypto, and
It's
but they
darn near
haven't
cost them the company.
exactly. Patrick Byrne has been using the company as a piggy bank for his little pet projects.
In fact, didn't he get ousted?
Yeah, he got kicked out recently.
Was it an
because of
ouster,
that.
or did he step down because he was involved in a relationship with someone who's a Russian spy?
Yeah, no, the story, that's why I was like, Overstock's such a great idea, because the guy is a character. Like the company, I mean, it's a really interesting company. Let's just put it that way.
So Emilio, when you dig into that crypto part, if you want more context there for that company, let me know, and I'll introduce you to a guy named Luciano Pesci, who's probably as savvy with respect to crypto as anybody in the state, and knows more about that story than he's going to tell you.
Sure,
He'll
yeah,
tell you enough.
yeah, that'd be great. I mean, crypto's always interesting. So I think that the reason why it's an interesting, because we talked about distressed companies. I asked you about distressed companies.
Yeah.
And so Overstock is in some trouble. They're not completely in trouble, but they're in some trouble. And they have an interesting basket of potential things that could either work out very well or go very badly.
Yep.
And so one of them is the T0 sort of market exchange they're trying to set up, where it's like a competitor to the NASDAQ, but with blockchain. It's kind of hard to evaluate that sort of thing, though.
It's so early stage, right?
So it's just one of those things, like it's an interesting company that if you wanted to make an offer or if you wanted to go after it, you could get it for cheap enough where it wouldn't be that bad, but it's got a lot of potential.
Right.
It should.
Well, and potential is a double-edged sword.
But what an eccentric, that guy.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments about the material that we've covered tonight? Okay, final item then. So would some of you, no, if you guys would like to get together and identify a day and a time or a couple of dates and times between now and Sunday night that you might like to have a study session where I open up a Zoom and that I'm willing to be on, feel free to think about that and approach me with a possible date and time. I'm going to ask you to stay away from Friday evening and Saturday evening and midday on Sunday. But my other evenings are fair game. Late on Sunday night is okay. I'd probably prefer you do it before then so you have more time after it to finish your work. But I think that would be helpful for you. I've been going back and forth with this issue that's concerned me, that you don't have the ability in this digital environment to have good cohesive study groups. I know you guys have used WhatsApp, and I think you've used it really well, by the way. And not only expecting me to answer, but you've given some great answers for each other. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am of that. But as we're coming down to the last couple of weeks of this, I think it would be helpful for you to have another organized study session. So think about when you might like to have that together. Propose a couple of dates and times to me. I'll select one, and we'll go with that, okay?